Hello friends, we're going to try this again. So last one went pretty well, and we'll see how this one goes. Again, this may pause or stop at any given point in time. I'm hoping to do about an hour, but we'll see how that goes. So last time we left off, we were doing a little bit of dialogue with Omar and Grant in particular, and Carly as well. And so I've made some progress on that. Part of that is actually going to involve Tanya here, so I'm going to actually start today's devlog by dealing with Tanya a little bit. So a little bit of change to what I was doing with the dialogue with the Carly scene, in that, let's jump into that actually. So it's not too different, but I've kind of gone back a little bit in that the dialogue was steering away from Carly being bored with math, and I'm kind of going back to her being bored. So the idea here is that we're trying to steer the conversation into positive reinforcement. So Carly's basically bored by math, but we're trying to get her interested by giving her positive reinforcement. So part of the thinking behind this is I'm trying to make this build a little bit better, as opposed to it just kind of happening too quickly. So with Omar here, the conversation, so this is the conversation that was happening after Omar has his initial conversation with Carly. So I change it so it still says, how are things going with Carly? Then Omar says, well, she doesn't like math very much. And then Grant says, yeah, she's more a creative type. So that's all the same still. And then this is the same as well. I just need to figure out what she needs to get her going, and then any advice. And then so I cut out some dialogue here, and then Grant just says, let me think about that one. So the idea is that after talking to Grant, Grant talking to Omar here, that Grant needs to kind of come up with a way to get Carly interested in math. So the idea is that we're going to try and incorporate Tanya into this a little bit. So one thing that happens here is that, if this wasn't so slow, come on, there we go. So at the end of this conversation, this little thought bubble comes up, which is ideally going to tell the player to just show you what it says. So what does Carly? So this thought bubble is going to pop up, and it's going to say it's like we're going to need to figure out her psychology to help her. So I have two ways of kind of moving this dialogue forward then. One is talking to Tanya, who is interested in psychology, and then the other option is to find one of the women's psychology books in the dorm and then read that, and then that will spur the progress of the story on. So so what I need to do here is, on this dialogue tree, I need to, at this point, adjust the dialogue variable. So so I tweaked my thing here. So basically variable 12, we're going to say, is what is the trigger for the dialogue that's related to Carly needs. We need to figure out Carly's psychology, so which we want to happen at this point here. So I want variable 12 to change to true at this point right here. So once that has changed, that will open up other dialogue. So and in particular with Tanya. So I don't have a ton of dialogue with Tanya. In fact, I just actually started making her. So she has an intro, and then didn't until this morning have a actual main dialogue. So I just started working on that, and then so this is kind of just a base thing that you can talk to her about the Dean, and then I'm going to make this one be a base that which you can talk to her about Omar. So for the time being, I'm just going to write talk about Omar, just so I know what that's supposed to be there for. And then this one here is going to be about talking about Carly's psychology. So I'm going to just write that there for now. And then right away I'm going to make it so that this condition of variable 12 has to be true. So this won't pop up until we've talked to Omar about it. So let me bring up my spreadsheet here. Then theoretically, once the end of that conversation happens, we would trigger this variable 13 to be true. So up until this point it'll be false, but once this dialogue thread gets completed, then variable 13 would be true, which would allow us to progress into the story more. For the time being, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back in time to this little dialogue here. I want to work on some facial expressions for Tanya, I think. So jump over to this other screen here. So here's Tanya. She's standing next to the Dean at the start of the day, and we're just going to work on some facial expressions to fill this out a little bit. Do a little bit something different, I guess. Alright, so here's how the facial expressions work. So there's a handful of built-in expressions, and then basically I just tweak them to make the face that I want, so I can combine them into a face that I want, which isn't always exact, but gets us to the ballpark of what we want. So let's see. I want expressions. Alright, so I'm going to be looking back and forth between my two monitors here, which I'm not going to keep flipping back and forth because it's going to get messy. I'm just going to leave it on this screen here for you guys. You can see her facial expressions, but I'm looking at the dialogue at the same time to see what she's saying to make this line up. Alright, so here's Tanya. And, okay, so the first thing, so we ask Tanya, what do you think the Dean is up to? And then she's saying, I'm sure she's going to get rid of me. So the basic idea with Tanya here is that Tanya is very nervous about the Dean. So she's worried that the Dean's trying to get rid of her. So let's make her a little bit worried here. So start with this, make her a little bit pouty. Alright, so that'll do for now. So again, what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to make this expression change, and then I'm going to just call it whatever the first couple lines of the dialogue are. So it's, I'm sure she's, the whole line is, I'm sure she's going to get rid of me, but this will do well enough. So then I will flip over to the other screen here so you can see this part here. So I'm going to drag my facial expression that I just made. Now the facial expression, when you make it, doesn't actually have anything attached to it. Like here, if I click, oh, that's the wrong one. Here it is. So right now it's basically a blank facial expression, and as we add these in, so these are the different types of expressions, and then we tell it how big the value is. But rather than doing that by hand, I have it set up so I can click onto Tanya here's character. I can drag over the, what was it? I'm sure. So I can drag over my expression so that there it's populated there, and then if I hit this button, it's going to take whatever her current settings are and then apply them to the actual expression file. So now if I click on this file again here, you can see it's now populated and these values are set based on whatever her settings were when I clicked that button. A couple other settings in here too are the speed of the change of the expression. I typically don't change that unless it's supposed to be something instantaneous. What I do typically change is the lid height a little bit. Mostly I do that just to dirty up the file, because for whatever Unity has a habit of losing your data if you don't dirty the file. So by dirtying I just mean basically I'm changing it. But that should actually do it. Then I'm going to click over here onto the actual line of dialogue, add an event, drag over my facial expression, drop it in there, and then tell it to actually change her facial expression. So we'll get to this line of dialogue, nothing will happen, and then once she says the line, this expression will get changed on her face. And then that's all. We're going to keep going down the line here. There's not too many lines of dialogue, but keep going down the line here and see what else needs to change. Alright, so let's jump back over to the other screen here where Tanya is. So this is her current expression. Says, I'm sure she's going to get rid of me. Then she says, what do you think? So probably not a huge change in facial expressions. Let's go with something like that. Raise your eyebrows a little bit. We can always change this later if it doesn't work. What do you think? And I'm not going to keep jumping back and forth on the screen. I'm just going to do that. So now I'm adding it to the dialogue. And I'm going to make sure to dirty it up so it saves it. Okay. Alright, so then now you've got two options after she says, what do you think? You can say, yeah, probably. Or you can say, nah, she's just making sure everything is good. So actually Tanya doesn't have any, at least as of yet, dialogue after on the following the nah, she's just making sure everything is good. But she does have some after yeah, probably. So we're basically just trying to spook her a little bit if you say yeah, probably. So if you say yeah, probably, she says, what, are you serious? So we're going to make her look really worried. So I kind of want her mouth to be more open. I don't want her to look aroused. So let's pull this down. What if I see that she looks too aroused? Well, maybe I can counter that a little bit by something like that. Let's give that a try. Okay, so then I'm going to drop that file onto her and then change the file and dirty it up. And I'm dropping it into the dialogue and then telling the dialogue to actually change the expression. So she says, "What, are you serious?" And then Grant says, "No, I'm just messing with you." Then she says, "Grant, I was about to have a nervous breakdown." So she's going to be a little bit more irritated than so sometimes what works is to kind of both add sad and happy. In this case it's not, to kind of create kind of more of a frustrated look, but in this case it doesn't look like that's gonna be a look that I want. I gotta add more angry. It's kind of an extreme expression here, but I'm hoping I can kind of negate it by bringing her eyelids down, which that part I don't have control over in this. That's I just add at the end here, but we'll take a look. It may or may not work when we play it in dialogue, but let's take a look. Grant, I was about. So I'm going to actually pull her eyelids down quite a bit to hopefully make her look a little bit more irritated, I guess, than furious. But we'll see how that looks. All right, and then add it into the dialogue. Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, so let's give this a run. So I've preemptively basically taken out both the Dean's and Tanya's initial conversations to speed up the process of testing stuff here. So Dean's gonna come walk at us, and then there's only one line of dialogue and that will end, and then Tanya will walk at us, and then she theoretically will start dialogue, but it will end instantaneously. And then now we can actually test this out. So we've got, well, that's interesting. Oh, so it's looking at the wrong dialogue here, so I gotta fix that. Alright, so I'm gonna unlock that. So Tanya's looking at the wrong dialogue. Actually need to change that within the tree, I think. The dialogue tree. It's set up to look at the last day's dialogue, or is it in just Tanya? Here, let's start by changing it here. If that doesn't do it, we'll change it in the dialogue. Alright, so try this again. And here comes Tanya. She goes away, and now let's try to talk to her. Yeah. Okay, so then this is what we want. So let's see. What do you think the Dean is up to? I'm sure she's going to get rid of me. What do you think? Yeah, probably. So the only thing I would say is that I want that to happen quicker. So that would be an instance where I want to change the speed of the facial expression. No, I'm just messing with you. So that didn't change. So that's should have changed her. So we got a couple things to quickly fix. So first of all, what was that line? So what, are you serious? Let's start with that. It's too slow. So this is why I name my files to match the dialogue, so I can actually find them and not be like, well, what the hell was that? So the speed of this is in seconds, so it's 0.75 seconds currently, which is the default. I'm going to change that to 0.45. We'll see how that looks. And then the other thing that happened was, did not appear to actually change her. Oh, so I don't know if I failed to drop it in there or if it lost it, but you can see here there's supposed to be a dialogue, but it says there's none. Grant, I was about to. So that's why that didn't change. Okay, let's try that again. See how this goes. What do you think the dean is up to? I'm sure she's going to get rid of me. What do you think? Yeah, probably. Yeah, so that's a lot better. Nice quick reaction there. So I think I could lower her eyebrows, or not eyebrows, her eyelids even more on that facial expression, but you can see it did actually change it, which is what we want. And then the other thing I failed to do is I didn't end the conversation properly, so we're locked into place here. So that's easy enough to do. And actually what I want to do is, what I have done in the past is I would, so what, to end the conversation, basically I just need to add another event here at the end, and that's how I always used to do it, but I think I'm better off creating a generic conversation, and then I can lead all my, as long as they are generic, I can lead all my ends of conversations through and then help ensure that my conversations end properly, because that is an issue from time to time. So what I need to do is I need to change this to none, and then two things I want to have happen. I want her to clear her facial expression. So she returns to her default expression. Then the other thing I want to do is actually end the conversation. And, whoops. And I want to end the conversation. It keeps on pulling that up there, which is annoying. Alright, so then the advantage of that is then I can, so this other branch of the dialogue, I can also just link up to that without having to keep adding basically these same two things to the ends of each conversation. I can just link them up to this, and it should do the same thing. Now, any conversation where I want it to end differently, like for instance if I didn't want her to clear her facial expression, then I would have to create a separate endpoint, but most of the dialogue branches are going to end with that information, so that should work. Let's just double check that it did. You serious? No, I'm just messing with you. Oh, I was gonna change. I want to do that right now while I'm thinking of it. Change how low her dialogue, or her eyelids are in the dialogue. So let's drop these even lower. So she looks a little more peeved. Alright, that's about to have a nervous breakdown. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Probably. That's annoying. So one of the annoying things about this dialogue system is that it will, as you saw, I kept on putting this back up to the top. Whenever you add an event, it always excuse me, it always loses like the last thing that you did. So you saw me put in a sequence here for none, but when I add the event, it got rid of that, which is annoying. But I'm used to that at this point, so I should know better, but I don't. So let's try this again. Jump back over to the main screen. Whenever you add an event or change an event, it loses like the last thing you did. That's why I kept moving that dialog box over to the other side. Alright, talk about, what do you think? I'm sure she wants to get rid of me. What do you think? Yeah, probably. Man, it didn't really move her eyelids that much down. Let's bump that up even more. Sorry, I won't do it again. Probably. Okay, so this time the dialogue ended properly. And we can move and interact and stuff, so let's try it again, see if the eyelids are down. So, yeah, you can see there. Sometimes the characters are not looking in a way that's convenient for me for testing, but that's the nice thing about having the profile pictures over on the side. So, okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to do it again, but this time I'm going to go the other dialogue option. Oh, hi, Sonam. Well, this is awkward. You worry too much. Alright, so let's get out of that situation. I think what I am going to do is I'm going to give her more of a relieved look. If you choose the nah, she's just making sure everything is good option. So to do that, I'm going to jump to this facial expression that she's got here for what do you think, and then I'm going to alter that one to be a little bit more relieved. Where is there it is. So in addition, so this button here, if I drop in a expression, it's going to take whatever her expression currently is and make the file that way. But if I drop a file into this one, it will change her expression to whatever the file is. So I want to find that what do you think file, drop it in here, and then I'll jump over the other screen so you can see her face change here as I hit it. So this is her what do you think expression, and now I want to have her have an expression after nah, she's just making sure everything is good. So I don't want to change it too much. She's still concerned, but as I said, sometimes if you kind of combine both sad and happy, they kind of make a bit of a grimace that can communicate what you want. I think actually the pouty kind of is a better There, I think that'll work. So let's make this to... Nah, she's just making. Then set the file, tweak her lid height, and then drop the file into the dialog. All right. So let's just double check that. It should be pretty straightforward, but let's make sure. Hopefully Sonam doesn't cause trouble for us. Bullying Tanya around. What do you think the Dean is up to? I'm sure she's going to get rid of me. Nah, she's just making sure everything is good. And she's a little bit relieved. You're worrying too much. And the dialogue ends properly, so that's good. Okay, that should do it for that, I think. What do we want to do now? I guess we could... We don't really need to deal with this Omar dialogue at the moment. We can leave that. But let's maybe close the thread. I'm actually going to slide this over so it's not in the way. Okay, so alright, so here's the setup. Let's actually jump over to the... We want to jump to the dialogue between Grant and Omar. So basically Omar's saying that Carly doesn't like math, and then the two of them need to figure out how to get her to like math. So Tanya, being our resident psychology expert, is going to have some useful advice here for Grant. So start this off in kind of a more generic way, I guess. You know, let's see how to phrase this. Just don't want it to be too wordy. Get the idea across, but not make it too obtuse. I guess let's start off more basic. You know about psychology. So I mean, the main idea here is I need to get the player to register that this conversation that I'm starting here is related to the Carly situation, which in theory they would be able to connect those dots because of the thought bubble that pops up after Am I spelling psychology right? I feel like I'm not. Does it feel wrong to me? No, I'm spelling it right. I want to communicate that this is something that they're bringing up because of Carly, without overloading that first dialogue option with so much text that it's, like I said, too obtuse. So I think that's a decent starting off point. You know about psychology, right? And then this next one we can make a little bit more wordy. We just don't want that because it's going to be mixed with potentially a whole bunch of other dialogue options, and you don't want to have this one really dense. You really don't want to have a lot of dense dialogue anyway, but you don't want to have, in particular, in a situation where you're picking from multiple options, one of them that's this dense bit of exposition or exposition setup or whatever, but I think this will work. If you wanted, I'm going to zoom in a little bit to help you guys be able to read it better. Basically, what I'm trying to get at here is I'm trying to get Tanya to suggest positive reinforcement, and then that to be the catalyst for what spurs on the actual scene. Let's put it this way. What's the best way do? So, given the vague nature of this setup here, I could very, very easily see Tanya being suspicious of this line of dialogue, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So she should, if I do use this line of dialogue, she should definitely inquire which in this case isn't a bad thing, because theoretically Grant is just trying to help Carly learn math. He's not actually doing anything wrong, so it's not really a problem in that regard. Let's go with it. Let's see how it flows. But yeah, we're gonna make Tanya suspicious because it sounds a little fishy, right? So hopefully we can make a facial expression that kind of helps sell that she thinks that this is a little fishy. So I'm thinking there'll be two options for response here. There should be an apostrophe here, right? After the what's. Or in the middle of the what's, right? What's the best way to get someone to do something they don't want to do? What exactly are you up to? So we'll start by just answering the question directly. So this will also help in case the player gets to this point and they don't know why they're asking this. This will also help communicate that to the player if they don't realize what the connection is between this line of dialogue and what's going on in the world. We'll put it this way. Well, we'll just keep going down this line of dialogue. Not 100% sure there will be an alternate, but we'll come back to that. Well, Omar is trying to help Carly with her math, but Carly thinks it's too boring. I'll get rid of this because I want to put a here. You don't want a double you know? Try and avoid having things be repetitive. What exactly are you up to? Well, Omar is trying to help Carly with her math, but Carly is thinking it's too boring. So we'll put a here. So now she's considering the option of what can be done. I have her phrase it differently than Grant did. Best way to help. Positive reinforcement. I think the best way to help someone is to give them. Now I'm wondering if I should get rid of the I think the best way to help someone is to give them positive reinforcement. Anyway, that's my opinion anyway. I'll just have Grant say, that's a good idea. And then I can link it up to this, and then that will end properly. This is the way I should have been doing this all along, but so here's the flow of the dialogue. You know about psychology, right? What's the best way to get someone to do something they don't want to do? What exactly are you up to? Well, Omar is trying to help Carly with her math, but Carly thinks it's too boring. Probably the best way to help someone is to give them positive reinforcement. That's my opinion anyway. That's a good idea. So for sure, this will set up variable 3, learned about need for positive reinforcement. So I could change the variable here. The only thing is I guess let's hold off on that, because potentially probably no matter what, the variable is going to happen no matter what this is, but which would mean that I'd rather change the variable up here so that I only change it once, as opposed to both here and then wherever this dialogue ends. So I guess let's figure out what this dialogue is, if it exists at all, and then change our variable. I just don't want to forget to change the variable. But alright, so you know about psychology, right? What's the best way to get someone to do something they don't want to do? What exactly are you up to? So part of the reason I split this off is because my thought was that Grant might feel awkward or guilty about it, but I don't know if that actually makes sense, given that, like I said, this is Grant actually just, in theory, doing something helpful and not trying to get away with anything. I don't think there needs to be a second dialogue here. I'm just going to get rid of it, actually. Try and put in dialogue options if there's actually some value to it, to making a decision one way or the other. Try and put in dialogue options where I can to give control over what's going on to the player. But if it doesn't matter, I'm inclined to just take it away, because ultimately, if this ends up going to the same place, then it's, I do still like over here, these don't have a real effect, but it's kind of a mishmash of sometimes I like to give you dialogue options just for some variety, and sometimes it doesn't really matter. In this case, I'm just gonna get rid of it, but we'll see. I'm gonna take a look, see how this flows, and then if I feel like there should be another option, I'll add it back in. But I'm gonna set up her facial expressions for this dialogue here. Alright, so let's revert her to her basic expressions. And then, so first thing is she's responding to Grant, saying what's the best way to get someone to do something they don't want to do, which does sound suspicious. So she says, what exactly are you up to? So let's try and, we're gonna up the annoyed here, which is gonna lower this eyebrow and raise that eyebrow a little bit, but I don't want her to be annoyed. So the smirk actually kind of counteracts this other eyebrow, so it makes her a little bit too. So let's do like we did with the last one, up the happy and the pouty a little bit to kind of give her a little bit of a grimace. See how that looks. Failed here, so I dropped in I forgot to actually change the file, so let me do that quick. I dropped it into the dialogue but didn't actually change it, so it would have just lowered her eyebrows more. Or I keep calling them eyebrows, eyelids. We'll make that change a little bit faster. So she's a bit suspicious, but okay, so she says that, then Grant says, well, Omar's trying to help Carly with math, but Carly thinks it's too boring. Alright, so now she's responding to that. She says, probably the best way to help someone is to give them positive reinforcement. So she's no longer suspicious, so we can get rid of that. And Just playing with different looks here. I mean, this is not too expressive of a thing, but let's just go with that. Oop, I just realized I'm missing a word in my dialogue. Let me get this finished before I fix it. I'm missing the word the. She currently says, probably best way, instead of probably the best way. Alright, so let's add the word the in, and then drop in this expression. Where is it? Alright, and I am going to change this, not change, well, I guess it is a change, get that dialog variable set to true, so variable 13 is set to true, so it becomes true at this point here. And one of the more recent updates to this dialog system, which is nice, is that they added these little icons so you can see where, so here the star means there's an event, so these are where I put in the facial expressions. The question mark means that there's a conditional, so that means that this dialog isn't necessarily going to pop up. So in this case it only pops up if day variable 12 is true. And then down here it shows me an arrow where a script is run, so here I'm setting day variable 13 to be true, so kind of a nice update to the system. The system is overall nice, but it is slow, and that event thing where it wipes out what the previous thing you just did is annoying. But let's jump into the game, check out our dialogue. Actually, so for the moment I'm going to jump back over here to the thing. So I want to actually copy and cut this condition out, because I want to be, for the sake of testing how these expressions look, I want it to be available right away. So I'm going to remove that condition, test that, and then I'll put the condition back in so that the dialogue again is not available right away. Is going to walk at us, pretend to talk to us, and then just run away. Alright, so you know about psychology, right? What's the best way to get someone to do something they don't want to do? So that's really suspicious. Probably the eyelids are too low, but that's okay. Well, Omar's trying to help Carly with her math. See, now, if I keep her eyelids that low, she looks that suspicious, it might make more sense to create a second dialogue where Grant's more defensive, Omar, as opposed to just being straightforward. Well, Omar's trying to help Carly with her math, but Carly thinks it's too boring. Probably the best way to help someone is to give them positive reinforcement. That's my opinion anyway. It's a good idea, and then that should end the dialogue properly. So now are they gonna fight? Nope, Tanya's too fast. Okay, so that worked just fine. But I am encouraged, actually, because even though it was more than I intended, the eyelids there, I kind of like it. So I think I'm gonna keep it and put back in this other dialogue option, and then make Grant a little bit more defensive. Actually, I want to take a quick little break so I get something to drink. I'm getting a little parched, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So let's see. What exactly are you up to? And then she's very suspicious. So based on that, maybe Grant. I'm actually debating on whether or not I want to have an event happen here. If maybe Grant completely bails on this. See here. That what I was thinking is that I could have him bail on this, and that would actually make Tanya suspicious, which could open up some interesting stuff, which is fine. I'm just reluctant to, like I said, I try not to put too much dialogue into one thing, but I also don't want you to accidentally, I don't want you to accidentally end up in a storyline. At least not like this. So, if he's going to bail on it, I think it needs to happen basically right here. Or it's got to be implied that that might happen. Maybe he doesn't bail on it, but maybe he just makes it look more suspicious. That could work. By the way he answers. Kind of like that. You know about psychology, right? What's the best way to get someone to do something they don't want to do? What exactly are you up to? Oh, you know, I'm just, trying to help someone. Oops, someone. So he's very vague, and he's already sounding suspicious before this. We'll have Tanya still answer the question so that the dialogue variable still gets triggered. But we'll keep her. We'll make her suspicious. So we'll make an actual event happen here. But let's have her finish off this dialogue. So it's going to basically be the same information. The other thing that I'm going to probably want to do is I'm going to want to close off this dialogue once you go through it. So you either you make her suspicious or you don't, and there's only one swing through the dialogue. But let's finish this off. Best way to help someone. I was about to put well, but I feel like I used that too much. Best way to help someone become better at something is to give positive reinforcement. So let me tweak his dialogue so he says get better at something. So that makes her dialogue make more sense. So, at least the way this is now, Grant's making himself seem more suspicious than he ever has to Tanya, and all he's trying to do is actually help Carly learn math, which is fairly ironic given potentially what Grant has done. Maybe he's been a saint in your playthrough, but I'm guessing probably not. But anyway, best way is to give positive reinforcement. I'll just have Grant be like, oh yeah. Good idea. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move this variable. This thing is so slow that sometimes it's hard to tell if it's actually selecting the thing. So I want to delete this link, but I can't tell if it was selecting it or not. Alright, so I want to make a new child node. So I'm going to basically do the same kind of thing here where they both flow through this, but nothing happens other than this variable is going to, I'm going to move this variable change here to this node here. So that they both have the variable change, and then it'll flow here. So I'm going to have two consecutive nodes that don't actually do any dialogue, but just change variables and or the state of the dialogue system. So I need to make that null. Alright, so let's... And I have to remember to put this conditional back up there. Unfortunately, I lost the copy-paste ability, but that's okay. Let's first just flow through this, make sure... Well, I'm not actually going to be able to... let's just do this. It should be fine. If this works, then this will also work. So let's... So she's suspicious. I'm going to jump back over to this other screen here so you can see what her facial expression is. So I'm going to drop this very suspicious looking face for the phrase, "What exactly are you up to?" And you don't see the lids are quite low on this expression, which again you won't see here, but you'll see when the game is actually running. So she's gonna so she says, "What exactly are you up to?" And then theoretically, if you choose this line of this dialogue, Grant says, "Oh, you know, I'm just trying to help someone get better at something." So she doesn't really need to change her expression till the end here, where she says the way to help someone become better at something is to give positive reinforcement. So just gonna try and make her a little more smug, like she's answering the question, but she's not buying it. I want her angry. I'm just trying to. I want her mouth to close. The bad thing about this system is I don't have individual control of the faces. It's a byproduct of how I started working on this game, unfortunately, but let's get rid of that. There, that looks fairly smug, right? We'll see how it looks in game. So here's the facial expression. So we'll make it a little bit quicker than the default, and then keep these eyelids pretty low, and drop in our expression into the dialogue. Okay, so let's see how that looks. There won't be an event yet. I haven't made the event, but theoretically we'll add an event. Tanya, and let's what exactly are you up to? See, I feel like I should reverse these. So your first option is a little bit more defensive. I feel like most people are going to pick this one no matter what. You know, I'm just trying to help someone get better at something. The way to help someone become better at something is to give positive reinforcement. Yeah, I think that works. Except for, like I said, I want to swap. No, I just realized that wasn't showing you. Sorry about that. You guys were watching the dialogue. But what I learned is that I want to swap the order that those appear as options. So I'll move this one up. Now, so what we'll do too is we'll make the event happen. Tanya says, we'll say Tanya sus, so that way I don't have to fucking remember how to spell suspicious. Plus that makes us seem more hip and modern or dated, depending on when you're watching this. Most likely dated. Okay, so sus. But now I do have to remember to spell suspicious. So the happening, this is just for the sake of the game. Actually, just in case there's other days that are where she's suspicious in the future, we'll specify which day. And then down here is what you actually will see when it pops up. Just because I know I'm going to misspell it. Tanya is suspicious, and this is happening on day 9. Alright, so then over in the dialogue tree, we'll make it happen over here. Actually, let's make it happen when she says this line. So this is the moment at which you would see the little spiral arms pop up indicating that an event happened. Alright, so you could see that worked. I think I'm actually going to have to sign off here, but I thank everybody who joined in on the dev stream here, and we'll catch you guys on the next one, and see you guys later.